Warzone's been through a lot, and as of Wednesday, it's actually 1 year since the mode released. What's on the horizon and what's in the future is still up for discussion, and perhaps one of the biggest parts of that discussion is actually down to some of the most basic fundamentals of Warzone. The map. What happens next? A new map like rumored, something of a playable option between the two, or maybe no new map at all and Verdansk just keeps going on. Today we may have some insight into what actually is the answer for that, and that's what I want to take some time to discuss here in this video today. So as we go along, let me know your thoughts down below. What do you hope to see here out of what may be a Warzone year 2 out of this? Do you hope to see a new map? Do you hope to see a playable option between the two, or do you just hope to see Verdansk stay as is and maybe evolve a little further? Whatever it is, feel free to let me know your thoughts. As well, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you're new to the channel, we're on that road to 400,000 subscribers, so if you guys want us to stay with all things Warzone, Cold War, and anything related to COD, we'll keep it to date with all of it. So if you guys are interested in joining the community, I'd love to have you. That said, let's talk about what may be up on deck here. Now, the short and simple answer in relation to the offering of Warzone is that on record, officially, we just don't know. Those plans haven't been revealed to us just yet, and truth be told, a lot of what we discuss about the future has never really been revealed to us yet. Does that mean that we don't have that information at hand? Not at all, because of course we have things like leaks, rumors, inside reports, and other things like that, and that's where discussion is drummed up from. But when it comes to a clear-cut announced plan for Warzone and a lot of the upcoming projects, there's nothing. Activision and Call of Duty haven't said anything officially. They're leading there with some of the teasers, but that's not anything that we have definitive just yet set in stone. But shifting lanes to that unannounced insider perspective, we can pick up on the idea from one Tom Henderson, the insider who we've talked about a lot in the channel's history here, going back to pre-modern warfare, with a large majority of his proposed information becoming fact as time goes on, adding to the credibility that he has. So he recently discussed the topic of a new map versus both maps versus just the old map, and had this to say. The current plan for Warzone is that Verdansk will not return. There's no separate playlist, map voting, or anything like that. Warzone is Warzone, and Warzone is one map. Warzone will continue to change its map as the story progresses. When I heard this, I immediately thought that a time machine or portal could be added to the story to have us return to Verdansk in a year or two, but that's just my speculation. More on that on a later date. Now, this sets us up for the path of focus then that Verdansk as we know it may be going goodbye, which, as someone who's spent an absurd amount of playtime on this map, has had plenty of my annoyances with locations like ATC Tower, downtown, the Geo and hills and things like that. Even through all of that at my base, I'm not a huge fan of change just overall, so I'll definitely miss it for sure, but I also do welcome the idea of an entirely new landscape. If that's the case, would I have liked the option to go back and play Verdansk for a little bit via map voting or a playlist selection like Rebirth has? Absolutely, but I understand why that can't happen. Splitting the player base may not seem like a huge task or issue when you consider there are some 70+ million unique users since launch, but ultimately, that division, no matter how you put it, will spread development thin when you consider that you have to upkeep Rebirth Island, Verdansk, and what would be a new map. This would make an already what I consider by comparison to other industry giants development even slower, and we likely would not see additions to things on all three, so the upkeep alone with a team effort being spread even thin to smaller developmental staff, it just wouldn't be the best idea. So I understand entirely where they're keeping one map as the central focus. But this in and of itself is certainly something that poses many new questions. What map are we going towards? How will the mechanics work? Will Verdansk return in the future ever? All very solid, sound questions, and in relation to the map itself, well, that current rumor has been and seems to be revolving around the world of Fireteam. Similar in nature to how we saw the ground war maps become Warzone's world, this kind of seems to be the biggest rumor, but with the Fireteam maps. One thing, if you're new to the channel, we've briefly discussed here before, was the prospect of either the Fireteam maps combining to be the next Warzone map, or perhaps potentially being a repurposed Blackout 2.0 map that was in development, but was later scrapped with Warzone's launch. There's plenty of documented interest where Treyarch has mentioned they wanted to work on a Blackout sequel or something as a follow-up to that, but with so much investment into Warzone, it's likely that that could have been something where a Blackout 2.0 map was made, but given that that wasn't the main focus Activision wanted to give, that could have been something that that map was retooled or repurposed for an existing map to, instead of be scrapped, turned into something else. But having seen that early development map of what is proposed, it would definitely make sense. All of the maps that we see in Fireteam currently are in that world. Ski Slopes and Ruka are of course there from the beginning, though Ruka looked to be a different area earlier on. San sanatorium's in there with the same likeness, and the newly added map of Golova, which is accessible via Outbreak, is there as well, with other named locations of Battery, Duga, Mines, Chemical Labs, Weather Station, and also Zoo in there. So if this is in fact the next map, that'd lead us to a strange fork in the road. We know that Sanatorium has a main focal point of water, and in Warzone right now, well, you can't swim on Modern Warfare's engine, so what would happen then? And why as well would we have a customization focal point around vehicles if we can't use a large portion of those vehicles on a larger scale? To me, I think two options persist here at this one. One, the lake and the water will just be an obstacle that will see players still unable to traverse that area, but could cause major gameplay issues if we can't, say, rotate to a zone on the other side of that lake. Sure, it could be an environmental hazard like you have with things like upper dam endings in Warzone, where you need to rotate early or else risk being trapped at the bottom of the mountain and dam and dying, but to me, that doesn't make a ton of sense, in a somewhat central area of the map, no less. Now, number two is kind of a two-parter, dealing with fundamental shifts in mechanics. 2A, I guess you could call it, is there's a rumor that Warzone was being tested on the Cold War and Black Ops engine, but to me, that's an incredible unlikely outcome here with this. We saw how much of a mess just importing Cold War weapons caused in Warzone with Season 1, so an entire engine shift would not only be improbable and be incredibly messy, but also would likely be impossible so long as the game is tethered to Modern Warfare's application and .exe. I mean, perhaps if you end up taking Warzone and making it its own standalone application, that could be possible because the base fundamentals could then be whatever you want it to be. But if you want to try and replace the entire base fundamentals of the Modern Warfare engine on Modern Warfare's application, you'd have to change out the entire game, which just seems incredibly unlikely to me. 2B, though, could be a mechanic overhaul for Warzone and Modern Warfare that we see could in the future now include things like swimming as an option. Now, I'm no game engineer, but from a logical standpoint, it makes a hell of a lot more sense to add in certain details and smaller features than it does to completely re-engineer a game engine from the ground up. There's been whispers of a more centralized, focused system of development that wants to be implemented for a while now, and naturally with teams picking up slack here and there for other studios. I mean, Cold War is a great example of that. Treyarch was tasked with coming in late in development and kind of repurposing everything, putting their spin on it, and fixing up things for a presentable product at launch. Now, whether or not you believe that it's presentable or not, that's entirely up to you, but that's the thing that has happened quite a bit in the last couple of years, is studios coming in and working on other people's projects. So if that's the case, well, there's obviously going to be developmental hurdles. Teams not knowing the tool sets and engine work like the back of their hands of their own game. So if there's something that's more centralized that may have encompassing all studio visions and put into one existing engine, that might be something that not only helps Warzone, but the long-term health and longevity of Call of Duty as we know it. Now, as for if Verdansk will ever return again, I'm incredibly curious, because even during the Cold War multiplayer reveal event last summer, Miles Leslie at Treyarch ended up doing a segment talking about Cold War's integration with Warzone, and specifically mentioned the evolution of Verdansk, which creates an even more strange amount of uncertainties perhaps. Verdansk has in fact evolved since then, especially as of late, trading out some underground locations for other things like new missile silos and the zombies outbreak, definitely as an evolution, but narratively, I think that it could just return at some point. Tom mentions the idea of portals and such, which he says is all speculation, but at the same time, it's also plausible, opening up the world building and the story end based on whoever is developing that current title and the Warzone offering that follows. So while portals and such wouldn't necessarily be a realistic approach that Modern Warfare seemingly was founded upon, it could work. Infinity Ward's narrative was built again on that believable conflict, something that could happen, a warlord wanting to start World War III, and that was squandered when Price threw Zakhaev down the silo, but that's where Treyarch started to have their hand in the storyline, and then where their influence took over, to which they're more of the mystic approach with storytelling. So a nuke going off to save the world from a zombies outbreak may not be super mystic, but it's definitely a lot more believable and realistic than dimensional gateways, or at least in today's age. Because listen, man, space and time are two of my biggest fascinations, so I can't quite slander the theoretical basis of that. But back to the discussion, assuming we keep with this, it could be a case of just narrative simply passing storytelling from studio to studio. Infinity Ward lets Treyarch gets mystic with it, Treyarch passes it to whoever is leading 2021's Call of Duty, maybe that being Sledgehammer, then we see a pass to Infinity Ward again back with that with perhaps 2022, and a more realistic approach later on down the line, to which in reality Verdansk may not be gone forever, just gone for a little while. But with all things, especially in marketing, pointing towards the end beginning, and with all credibility here going to Tom in the past, it might look like Verdansk is actually going away here relatively soon. So this may be the last season we have for our time in Katsovia and the fictional city of Verdansk, but we may be going to somewhere else in the near future. So that's where we're going to wrap it up. Love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. What are you guys looking forward to here? Again, are you looking forward to a new map? Do you kind of wish Verdansk was staying around? Do you wish you had the option to play on both? Whatever it is, feel free to let me know. But as well, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Warzone, Cold War, and anything COD related. We'll keep the digit with all of it. So if you're interested, hit that subscribe button. If you also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get content outside of YouTube. Break up on both those. If you guys want to strict conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.